Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time I know I promised I was going to release this week another crazy prices video. I still have that in the can along with some other videos, but I just wanted to touch up a little bit more on what I discussed last week when it comes to some of these hot books. So that's why the name of this video is called My Opinion on Purchasing Some of These Hot Books. I know a lot of people right now, they're very concerned about, well, the prices are going up. They keep going up and up. Is now the right time to buy this book? Now is it the right time to buy that book? Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't give you an answer on that. You're gonna have to figure that out for yourselves. Okay? I know I had some questions about, oh, should I go ahead and purchase a giant size? Should I purchase an Ultimate Fallout 4 now? What should I do? That's your money. You need to decide. I cannot tell you to go off and spend thousands of dollars on something and then for whatever reason, maybe a year from now, we're sitting here and it doesn't work out and you get angry that you spent thousands of dollars on something, perhaps thousands of dollars that you really didn't have. But I'm going to address some of those things right now. Last week, towards the end of the video, I talked a little bit about, how can you predict what's going to be hot? And it's really difficult at times. It really is. I mean, I mentioned this sometimes. Books come out of nowhere when it comes to popularity, okay? And we all know some of those examples. But I tried to mention last week, if you really want to try to be on top of some of these things, or at least somewhat, there's always risk, okay? Let me just tell you right now, there's always risk that you might look into getting something, you might get something, and it might completely flop. So you have to be, cognizant of that whatever risk you take, whatever book you buy, there's always a risk. It's the same thing in other things in life. There are risks. But that being aside, I talked about Blade last week, right? I mentioned Blade. Thinking about what's going to be the next hot book. Well, there's a Blade movie. And the first thing people say is, oh, Tomb of Dracula 10? You have to think beyond that. Of course, Tomb of Dracula 10. But I think it's a little too late for that right now. If those of you that are looking to get a good deal on the first appearance of Blade, it's not really a good time to buy that book. I mean, if you're just this average person looking to buy comics, if you're well off, then any time is good to buy these books, right? Doesn't really matter. But if you're just trying to figure out, well, is this a good book to buy? Is this something that's going to keep growing? It seems like right now with Blade, and I'm pretty sure it's going to continue to grow, but it's pretty pricey now. Pricier than it's been in the last 3 years ago before the announcement, right? But aside from the Tomb of Dracula 10, you have to start thinking about what other characters, supporting characters that are related to the Blade universe. Where is Marvel going with Blade? I mean, you may say, well, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet. You have to think. If Blade is horror themed, and they're introducing Moon Knight. Now, I'm not saying Moon Knight's horror themed, but sometimes Moon Knight has something to do with Werewolf by Night, has something to do with Blade, and some of those darker characters. So that's where you should be thinking. That's what you should be thinking about. When it comes to supporting characters, and characters that probably just showed up once or twice, or maybe appear every now and then, that are very cheap to buy. Their books are very cheap to buy. That's where your mind should be. So that you buy some of these books, and hell, if they show up on a TV series, in the movies, in the sequels, whatever, you have the book, you can sell it, you can flip it, and then put that money toward a bigger book, like Tomb of Dracula 10, if you're really that into trying to get a Tomb of Dracula 10, or whatever. That's what you should be thinking about, because so many of these other books just pop up. Now, I think I mentioned this before, too. We all knew that there was some idea that, or some speculation on White Vision, West Coast Avengers 45. When Vision was killed, spoiler alert, in Infinity War, I think we all thought that he was going to come back as the White Vision in Endgame. And when that didn't happen, I think a lot of people figured, well, that's it, and they started selling those copies off and didn't think in the long run that maybe there was going to be something else where White Vision might show up. And something else did come up, WandaVision. So that's what you have to start thinking about. Where are these characters? Who are some supporting characters? And you have to think in the long term. All right. I know sometimes people don't like to think in the long term. For instance, I'll use the White Vision example again. Oh, we just saw Infinity War. Vision died, but I'm pretty sure he's going to come back in the next movie as White Vision. So I'm going to buy all these books, these West Coast Avengers books, and I'm going to get nice high grades. And right when the movie comes out and we start hearing rumors that White Vision's in, I'm going to start selling them, flipping them so I can get money for something else. White Vision doesn't show up in the movie. Oh, well, I guess that I made a big mistake there. No, your mistake is you're thinking in the short term. You know, if you're not really in a position to buy something in the long term, then, you know, this may not be the best thing for you to do. You really have to think in the long term. You have to buy something and say, you know, hey, I think this character or these characters might show up in a TV show. They're related to Blade or related to Moon Knight or whomever. They might show up on the show or in a future movie. And then that show comes out. And then that movie comes out and they don't show up. And you have to sit back and say, well, you know, maybe they'll show up again in the next movie or in another show. You have to think like that. You can't just throw your hands up in the air and say, I give up. You have to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to give it some time. I'm going to buy this book and I'm probably going to put it away for 5 years. You know? But I understand a lot of people don't like to do that. Flippers don't like to do that. They want to get something, get the quick return and move on. You know, and there are some things you can do that with. But I'm just trying to tell you that there are some things you can't. Now, I use Blade as an example. You should also be thinking about X-Men. And again, I think the odd people are immediately going to the obvious choices. Oh, X-Men #1, which is like crazy money. Giant size X-Men. You have to think about some of the other characters that are still somewhat affordable and high grade. If that's what your idea, that's what you want to do. You want to flip books down the line. Because let's say you want to stock up on a couple Mr. Sinisters or whatever, but you have no intention of keeping Mr. Sinister, but it's something that you might want to flip to get maybe giant size X-Men, a nice giant size X-Men #1 or whatever. You have to be willing to say to yourselves, okay, Mr. Sinister may not show up in the X-Men movie, may not show up on any of these TV series, but it's likely that this character, if the popularity of the movies continue, if the Disney Plus TV shows continue, they don't all start to fall apart, they continue to grow in popularity, it's very likely that you're probably going to see Mr. Sinister down the line. And if you stocked up on some really high grades of X-Men 221, you could get rid of them when the time is right. Now, I know the conversation that, oh, villain books go down. Yes, we all know that. But you can still get rid of them at the right time if you thought ahead. Okay? No one's saying that you have to keep them forever and think that this is just something that, you know, I'm going to sit back, pat myself on the back, say I got myself a nice high-grade Mr. Sinister, and this is going to be something that goes to the moon and stay on the moon. That's probably not the case, right? But if it's something that you're thinking about flipping in the long run, it may not be a bad idea to get a couple Mr. Sinisters or our first appearance of Archangels, whatever. But try not to spend too much money, because what happens if it flops? You don't want to sit back and say, oh my God, I put so much into this, and down the line you find out after, you know, maybe a couple movies or TV shows or whatever, it really didn't manifest. It didn't really come together. You want to sit back and say, well, I didn't spend that much. It didn't really burn too much in my bank account. So you have to open your mind to some things like that. And probably a lot of you have. Probably a lot of you have been doing this for years. So this video is useless to you. But I think that there are some new collectors or flippers or whatever, sellers, that don't always think like this. You know, I don't really speculate too much, but I speculate a little. So I have like a small box filled with what I think are spec books. And it's not something that, like, okay, when that Blade movie comes out, I'm pretty sure this character is going to show up. No. I may be speccing on some Blade characters, but I fully understand that some of the characters that I picked out, books that I picked out, may not show up on a TV show or a movie for a long time or at all. But that's okay, because I didn't go crazy spending top dollar on everything. I was thinking about what could possibly be in the future. I purchased it and I put it away and I forget about it. Till one day where hopefully, maybe, that character shows up and I say, hey, wait a minute. I think I purchased that book. I don't want to keep it in my collection, but I may want to get rid of it. Or I'm going to decide when's the good time to get rid of this book. I'll sell it and maybe put that money toward getting the money back that I put into it, which is never that much, and put it towards something else. So you have Blade. You should be thinking about X-Men, of course. Everyone's thinking of X-Men. Daredevil. Think about Daredevil. Daredevil's going to be coming to the MCU. What other characters do you think that may be worth looking into when it comes to Daredevil? Now, again, sometimes it's really hard to predict. Sometimes just because you think immediately in your head, okay, these are all the Daredevil characters that didn't show up on the TV series that may show up in a future movie or whatever Disney has planned 5 years down the line. It still may not work out. But again, I say it over and over again in this video, you have to be willing to take a risk if that's what you want to do. If you're looking to say, yeah, I'm trying to get some books, I'm trying to stay ahead of the game, I want to see if I could have a bunch of books that I may be able to sell for a few $100s, and I only spent like maybe $100 on or $50 on. Might want to sell these for a few $100 if they're announced in the next TV show or movie, or they show up. You have to think in the long run. It's not always going to happen in the next movie or on the next TV show. Just keep that in mind. Again, it may sound like common sense, but as Nick often says, common sense is sometimes not so common. Okay? I'm just going to use a recent example and, a couple examples, then I'm going to go. All right? Like I said, I'll get back to the crazy prices next week. I know I promised this week, but I just wanted to talk about this for a little while because I think it's worth talking about. I think these are things that a lot of us think about when it comes to what's going on right now. That's why I've been making these crazy prices videos, because it really is. It's in a very unique time as of the filming of this, March 2021. It's a very unique time when it comes to prices on all things. And we talked about why is this happening? And, I had my ideas, and some of you responded last week in the video, and some of you gave me your own ideas why you think this is all happening. And they're all great ideas, but, I think it's almost like a perfect storm, the way these things are going on. But I know a lot of people were specking on Mephisto. Everyone thought that Mephisto was behind this whole thing in WandaVision. And immediately people were starting to regret Mephisto, putting all that money into Mephisto. And, maybe there's some legitimacy in that, legitimacy in feeling disappointed. But don't forget, Mephisto is still a very good book to get. I'm not saying it's one of the stellar books to get, but it's still not a bad book to have in your collection. So if you purchased a Mephisto and it really didn't burn too much, or it wasn't a big deal, didn't burn too much out of your bank account, you might want to hold on to it instead of quickly, frantically trying to get rid of it. You never know. Down the line, and this has happened to me before, and I'm sure it's happened to you, he might pop up in some form or another. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, no, Disney does not do devil characters. Yeah, maybe the Disney of the 1960s, but today's Disney, I think, is capable of anything. All right, so never say never. I've learned that. There are many times I would say never. I would never buy a book with a date stamp. Well, never say never, right? And again, another short story. A couple of years ago, I was talking to this one guy. He had a chance to buy a giant size X-Men. I think it was a 7.0, 6.5, 7.0. And it was like between $600 and $750. And he was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, And he started lamenting immediately afterwards. Oh, maybe I should have done that. I should have done that. The point I'm trying to make with this is, now as we know, giant size X-Men, he really effed up. He really effed up not getting that book. But the point I'm trying to make with at least this example is, you can't kick yourself too much. We try to stay ahead of the game, but sometimes we just don't. We just don't know what's going to happen. Things are very unpredictable. And I think we've seen a lot of unpredictability when it comes to some of the characters that have shown up in maybe some of these announced for some of these series, or have been in WandaVision or whatever. So don't kick yourself too much. You can't always get them all. Everyone, have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe. And again, I'll get to crazy prices maybe next week. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.